Here we go. Welcome to Control Talk Now, your Smart Builders videocast and podcast for the week ending March 14th, 2021. This is episode 393, where we talk about the cool issues and trends in smart building and HVAC controls. And it's the day before the Ides of March. And we are joined by your host and mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the Caesar of HVAC and smart building controls, the one, the only control man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Ken Smyers. Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. Julius Caesar didn't have a good day on March 15th, back when.
Explain for our audience who might not know what the Ides of March is. Can you give them just a quick synopsis of that? Because it's kind of an important day.
Well, the Ides of March is the 74th day in the Roman calendar, corresponding to March 15th. It was marked by several religious observances and was notable for the Romans as a deadline for settling debts. Is a full moon, but probably the most impressive, important issue that happened was Julius Caesar, dictator of Rome, stabbed to death at the Roman Senate House by 60 conspirators led by Marcus Julius Brutus. Cassius Longinus on March 15th.
Tu Brute, right? You too, Brutus. Et tu Brute. So,
ouch.
Ouch. So, listen, for our listeners out there, that'll be a Monday. You might want to stay in, especially if you're high up in political power. And if you got somebody named Brutus working for you, definitely stay home. So, Big Dog, it's been a big week in controls, man. We got a great guest coming up here in a few minutes. And hey, before we get started, man, I wanted to tell our audience about a really cool program coming out by the fine folks at Distech. It's called DC TV. It's a place where they discuss, debate, and educate their viewers on the kind of the today's smart building control system. So, and yours truly got to be the host of it. So we recorded the first episode, and I think it's going to drop March 30th, if I'm not mistaken. We'll put a link on Control Trends, but Distech, man, leading the pack, man. Good stuff.
Well, they got an ace in the hole there. Getting Eric Stromquist to be the host certainly elevates it and makes it personable and makes it entertaining. So I can't wait to see it.
I think it's going to be really good. So we got that going on. What about you, Kenny? What are you seeing new in the industry this week?
Well, of course, we're going to go over our theme about women is
special month, isn't it? Special month.
It's going to be. We're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to go over some of the important things that we've done in Control Trends to recognize women. We had our Women of the Year. Just looking at the fabulous list of women over the period of the 9 years we've been doing this. Just looking at 2019, we had.
Well, hang on a second. Let's make this official. Let's wrap this up. Put a nice, big, beautiful bow on it because it is Women Appreciation Month, and Kenny and I do appreciate women in general, but especially the women in our industry. And as such, at the Control Trends Awards, we started a category called the Control Trends Woman of the Year. And oh my goodness, we got so many great women in this industry. So first of all, congratulations to all the women in our industry. We appreciate you. And Kenny, let's acknowledge these women. Let's go down and who are the Control Trends women?
You're right. There's a tremendous amount of successful women in our industry, and the category was just hugely responded to. Some of the 2019 finalists were Barbara Cook from Honeywell. We had Dana Haggerty.
Intech Controls, yeah.
Yeah, we had the 2016 winners were Renee Joseph from Johnson Controls, and Jenny Graves was formerly with Tritium. We had.
I think these women are trying to call you on the phone, Kenny.
We had Lauren Scott, Director of
Distech,
Marketing.
yes.
Yep, we have Cochran Supplies, Nicole Conklin.
Laura Kevin was there somewhere along the way, wasn't she?
Oh, Laura Kevin, for sure.
Yeah.
I think Laura's won a couple of awards. She won the
Best Tech Support at one stage of the game, but she was also one of our Women of the Year, I believe.
Yeah, and then the woman from Johnson.
Oh, Jenny Stentz, right?
There you go. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And yeah, so it's just a lot of progress being made, and we're going to go in. We're going to go into, like you call it, the deep weeds on the subject.
Going to the
Ken
deep end of the
Sinclair.
pool. But yeah, real quick, shout out to Jenny Stentz. I hadn't seen you in forever. Jenny is one of the coolest people on the planet. She's a big exec at Johnson Controls, but Jenny is so cool. I'll never forget doing a video cast with Jenny. I'm in my Tesla. We're driving down the road. I've got my hand on the wheel and got the car driving itself. And Jenny and I are doing a video cast. It was so cool. So Jenny, man, if you're still around Atlanta, look me up. Would love to catch up with you. But just an example of some of the really great people in our industry. So, well, cool, buddy. Well, should we?
Oh, and Laura Kevin won the PID award. Remember?
That's right. She won the PID for sure.
It was, but so it's been we're seeing spring come. Turn the clocks
Gina
back.
Elliott was another one.
Afford me.
Yeah, Gina Elliott won. So Woman of the Year, I think, as well as other awards. So yeah, spring's here. I mean, dude, I'm going to put my shorts on and go out for a walk. The flowers are blooming. Life is good. So, but hey, we got our guest this week. We're going to talk more about women. So stay tuned. Kenny, how about introducing our guest?
I'd love to. Ken Sinclair, owner, editor, and publisher of AutomatedBuildings.com, and we're going to be talking about the March issue. March, our amazing women choose to challenge. Some really great stuff, great content, and some highlights of just the fabulous women in our industry. So welcome to the show, Ken.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here.
How good is that?
That's perfect. I mean, you've getting really good at this. And we're gonna have to compliment you on your March edition. I mean, I think it's, Women's Appreciation Month or Day, and right on time as always. This issue seems to be dedicated to the women. So tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Honoring the women, and it's March, which of course is International Women's Day. Always falls in March, and it's kind of focused around that. And it was led by the Optical Group originally, so they didn't take the challenge this time. So I threw it out to the industry, and I would say that the women from Symmetrics were our key. The thing they did is they were the first to have their interview in, and they kind of set the style, because they basically in their interview they talked about what each one of them did and then how they came into the industry, which was really useful. And I kind of circulated that to most of the folks that had committed to give us information, and a lot of them followed that same format, which was great, because the whole issue reads for any young women wanting to come into our industry. They can actually just see a great variety of people coming from a great variety of backgrounds, and it just really worked out well.
Yeah, I'm going to get you out of trouble right off the bat.
Because, Jane,
let's talk about the great, powerful woman there at AutomatedBuildings.com first, and then we'll get to the rest of the women.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, it was kind of I guess a serendipity type of situation for her to sort of sit and watch it kind of going by, and not being part of actually reading and processing each one of the articles. So I was worrying about trying to get this together to their level of standing. Everybody actually submitted everything and handled more or less their own formatting, which worked out really well for me. So it was great. And I think Jane was pleased to be honored for her long involvement in Automated Buildings, and but was kind of glad to step aside and let the women do their thing, and it was good. Also appreciated having my daughter open it up with it. She's, as you've noticed, is a powerful woman, and probably the reason that I do this, because I've kind of grown up with her straightening out my opinion anytime it tends to droop, and the Springboard of Australia that she's the chairman of is a powerful group of not women worker but women entrepreneurs, which is an interesting twist as well. So that was kind of fun to have her open it up, and And then I got my niece to, who's a ordained minister, to close it with some words. So we really made it a family affair. I chased my other daughter, who was with Shopify, and she was they were in a bit of a lockdown because they had a bunch of neat stuff going on. So she was unable to write what she would want to write. So anyway, so that was kind of a fun thing to make it a family event.
Well, so Ken, what I'm hearing, and Kenny, then I want to let you hop in, but what I'm hearing is the secret to success in today's business is surround yourself with capable, powerful women and listen to them.
Well said. And I do believe that. Every one of them was indicating their numbers are increasing in their companies. Like everybody, so they were either at 30%, 40%, 50% of the company staff was women. And I think that's a great tribute to them all, that how hard they've all been working. Another one that I liked was Monica Holbrook, Senior Project Specialist at Climatech. She wrote last year and she wrote again this year, a mentored education. And she just talks about how significant it is for the women to reach out to the women in their companies and help them along and just show them how they can evolve and become, take over any position they wish. And I thought that was great. Every one of them, the advice and as a resource, I don't know if you remember, we were trying, before we had, our theme was make, what was it? Building automation your new vacation. And I think this is a great resource for any women that are considering coming into the building automation industry.
Well, yeah, I was looking back just for the history of women, or March being Women's Month, and it has an incredible historic, and it's global. And I think UK and Australia, they actually have it in different months. I think theirs are in October, ours is in March. But North America, I think, is in March. But I think back when we started the Control Trends Awards, we were really impressed. We had the Woman of the Year. And I remember in 2016, we were talking offline, Renee Joseph from Johnson Controls and Jenny Graves, who was with Tritium at the time, were the co-winners. But on that stage was one of the most powerful assemblies of corporate women I've ever seen. And we knew them all, but we just didn't realize how, you had Laura Kevitt, you had Gina Elliott, you had just one after another, where they were the backbone of either a product portfolio or actually ran a company. So it was really impressive. I think from about 2016 on, I realized how they had migrated to the top positions in their respective companies, and it was and the companies were doing real well, and we were just impressed, and we're very happy to be able to recognize the success the women have made in our industry. So it's a good thing.
We had a little bit of a preamble before we got going here, and you mentioned that you're going to have Gina Elliott on one of your following shows here, and that's great. And if you think about Gina, she's certainly gone through a lot of the major companies in the industry, and in addition to being sort of rising to the top, she's risen to the top of several industries, and I think has a really great perspective on our industry. So that's neat. I'm looking forward to that interview.
Well, Kenny, Ken and Kenny, I think, you just hit on a key word, which is different perspective. And one of the people that I studied with, Marshall Thurber, for years and years and years, and he consulted with all kinds of companies in the military and whatnot, and had studied the Japanese model, had studied with Edwards Deming. And, one of the really keys to getting it right, and I think it's true more now than any other time, is you really need multiple perspectives, multiple different opinions, and people that, are willing to speak up and voice their concern. And you really need to take all that in if you're going to get it right. And I think, that in our industry, the women that I've known in our industry are really good at that. They bring something to the table. They typically come from a different background, or maybe the same background, but definitely from a different perspective in most cases. And that just makes your company better, right? And So I think it's just smart. And I think, we've talked in the past about having young people on, your staff millennials, they give you a different perspective as well. So I think diversifying your team is going to allow you the best chance of getting it right in any sort of environment. Agree or disagree, fellas?
Oh, I definitely agree. The other thing I think is our industry is changing. And what I've basically pointed out is the women coming into our industry, the women in our industry and the women coming into our industry are the change. And the big thing that has happened over the last few years is we used to just control temperature, and now we are involved in the attitudes, the productivity, and the touchy-feely people inside the building. And I think women have much better insight and empathy for what is going on there. And now, of course, we've just slowly coming out of COVID and 2020, the year that wasn't. And I think healing and the necessary bridges that need to be built to put people back to buildings I think women can offer an awful lot into insight and as to how we're going to do that. So we're an industry in change, and I think they're the people that will bring a lot of that change to our industry.
Well said, Ken Sinclair. The other question I've got, have you been able to glean, because if I'm a company out there listening, I'm wanting to know, how do I attract really good women to my company? Have you been able to glean from your interviews, like a trend or something that women might be looking for coming into our industry?
I think actually, if you read through all of the interviews, one of the common themes are that they support each other, and so getting one or two strong women into your company probably is the start, and they will also try and identify anybody in your company who is willing to grow through mentorship, and also bring in people from people. I'm always terrible saying people, and somebody said, don't ever say people. Bring in other women that they know from their associations and friends, and so that will help your company grow.
The thing we did in the AHR show, Ken, where we had the women up on one of the breakout sessions, and got to hear some of the incredible histories and how they got started. The one woman was a contractor, and she went out with her father and learned the business on a bucket, just like doing the hard work, pulling wire, and she wound up working for Lake Spring, Erin DeFries.
Yes.
And she was technically competent as anyone in the room, but it's just I have two daughters, and I was always proud of the fact that they were able to I raised them as, I don't want to say I raised them as boys, but I certainly didn't go slow on the realities of competition and whatever. They both played competitive tennis, Division I tennis, but they were very in tune with the nature of some of the men traditions. I remember Virginia Woolf. She said that women were absent from the four parades of the men's world: the military, the government, academia, and business. And it seemed like it was just and then living in Germany, I realized it was a very chauvinistic area world. German structure was that the women stay home and the men go to work, and it was strictly enforced. But anyhow, to see our industry evolve, and then the technology is coming in, we need firepower, and we need a different level of effort to get our industry the surge that we need to get the positions that are occupied. We're in one of the fastest growing industries, if not the fastest. And yet we have an inverse relationship. We've got 60% of our industry is going to retire by 2024. And it's an amazing dilemma. But I think the solution is going to be to empower the women, like you said, and have them bring in more of their affiliates that they know, and that professionals that they can bring to work and solve some of our issues.
Great. Yeah, no, I totally agree. The other thing that is common is that few of them, talked basically about sort of beating up the men to kind of get into the industry. It's just they're in the early stages. There was obviously some big problems, but I think now they're strong. My daughter, I remember we were talking once about the glass ceiling, and she perceived that there wasn't really a glass ceiling. It was just that some of the women perceived there was a glass ceiling, and if there was a glass ceiling, she just broke it. So because she basically not only was moved up in the companies, she then started moving up and started controlling companies, and there was really no reason. Nobody said you can't do that. You just had to do it, and a lot of the stuff is that. So a lot of it is there's that perception, and once they start pushing, and their theme this year is just amazing. The choose to challenge is great, because that's exactly what they all need to do. Is they need to say, can I do this job? Go to their managers and ask that question. Can we bring these women in? Can we take this person who's the other thing? Yeah, sorry, I'm going a dozen different directions as I always do. But another thing that becomes obvious is we have a whole bunch of support people that are women in our industry. A big part of our industry is just learning to talk funny like we all do. All those silly words, integrators, master systems integrators, all of these things that nobody else in the world knows what they are. And because they're working there, they actually know all of that stuff. So once they start into a job, they don't have to learn the lingo. They know that, and they know what some of these people look like and what they do. And they've maybe been, like in your industry, maybe they've been actually supplying all the bits and pieces for the industry. So when they need to move to that next level, they have an incredible insight as to how the industry works. Then they just have to apply some of their skills to move us forward and bring the change.
Yep. Yeah, so they started out, in the positions, secretarial or reception, and have worked their way all the way up to service manager, or worked up, into the sales part of it. Absolutely. I was from a family business, and we had 11 children, 7 boys, 4 girls, and 2 of my sisters worked for the family business for 20, 25 years, and did exactly that. They learned the numbers as well as, whether it's a TH7F or a V88A, whatever the model numbers were. They knew what that was. And I have a sister, Kelly. Every time I tease her, she used to call it inventory checks back before computers were online, and you knew everything from having an inventory module on your computer program. We hit the sneaker net, you literally have to verify you had them in stock. And the girls would call out the numbers all day to the inventory for people to pull the orders or to see whether or not it was actually in stock. But she really learned the business well. And, she could have been a sales engineer, just like the brothers wanted to become sales engineers. That was on our card. I remember we always had trouble saying we were engineers because we only had 1 or 2 degree engineers in the company, but we were all sales engineers. I don't know where we picked it up, but it's still on my card. But I think it's just a fascinating thing. And here we are. March is almost over. March is a long month, but it really was good to hear the saturation of this. You can't say enough about extolling the virtues of us benefiting as an industry, because we need more talent, more growth, and the women are filling those niches.
I mean, well, and I think it's about time that we really recognize. I mean, that's why Kenny and I, started the Woman of the Year as a category at the Control Trends Works. They need to be recognized. And I'm going to ask this next question, guys. And I realize I'm probably asking the wrong people here, but so if our audience out there wants to chime in through comments or whatever, please do. But here we are in 2021. My question for you guys is, do you think that we, as an industry, for the most part, discriminate or don't discriminate against women? You think women get an equal shot in our industry, or is there more work we need to do in that domain?
So are we open? Are we open to women? I think every day and every issue like this where we get to hear their story helps, and we need to change. A little tongue in the cheek was this, some of the folks decided that they had to showcase their women, let's put it that way, which was good. But actually from Brad White, he told me, because he has quite a few women in his organization, and he says, if you're doing anything with them, you cannot organize them. You have to let them organize themselves. And I think that was good advice. And so it's interesting that I think women have to tell their own story. And when they do that, I think we get a much better perspective. We're not in a position to tell their story. They need to tell their own story.
Well, I mean, I'd throw in that there's, societal, momentum and inertia and resistance, and that all has to be changed. There has to be a cultural change. I think it's underway, but it's not done. It's not finished. The disparity in wages is very apparent, in the executive levels. I think to this day, women's tennis, I remember Steffi Graf says, she gets a check. The men got, $1 million check, and the women got $500,000 check. She says, enough is enough. So there's just that, that the women weren't generating the numbers in terms of viewers, or their level of competition wasn't as high as the men's, or whatever the information was. If you look at professional soccer too, but you got to get on TV and you got to get commercials. But I had the personal experience back in the Air Force where I was a security specialist at 811XO, and because the career field was designated as a combat-related career field, women weren't allowed in it until we didn't have enough men to do. They didn't want to go into that career field, so they let women come into it, and they proved very successfully that they could do it. You had to carry M60 machine guns and qualify on machine gun, M60, 203, different things that were heavy and arduous and cumbersome. But when they gave the women the chance, they excelled. They became some of the best. They were very good shots, and they were very strong, and they could handle it. So I think this applies to our industry as well. You just don't see many women electricians. You don't see many women steam fitters. But I was recently at the steam fitters here in Pittsburgh, 449, and I was kind of, I saw women where before 10 years earlier, I wouldn't have seen a woman, or 5 years earlier, just simply because the culture didn't readily avail itself to a woman. It just was perceived to be a men's only style thing. And I think that's changing. So I think you always have to be on guard with it, because if something doesn't affect and create change, it'll just go on as it did for many years.
Well, what I hear you saying, Kenny, and Ken Sinclair, I think I heard you sort of allude to it as well, is that the women in our industry, which, by the way, the ones I've met are just absolutely incredible. But Kenny, what I hear you saying is that, hey, if you can do the job, you get equal pay, you get equal opportunity. Ken Sinclair, what I might have heard you sort of embed a little bit is that the women, I think the women I know in our industry, don't put us on because you need to make a quota, and don't let us, prove ourselves, right? But I haven't heard any of the women in our industry that are just saying, hey, you should treat me differently and not make it as hard for me. What I've heard is, hey, give me the challenge, let me prove myself, right? Sure. And if I do that, then pay me and give me the same opportunities as somebody else. But I don't perceive, at least in our industry, anybody's looking for, hey, I'm a woman, therefore I should be treated differently. Has that been your guys' experience?
Yeah, they got very much agree. And should you put a machine gun in their hands, I'm pretty confident that they won't use it. They'll find another way of basically changing the company, which is kind of that's a man's approach, is give them a machine gun and I will get some respect and I will change this company. Well,
that was an analogy, Ken. No, this is a security where everybody.
If you're in the military and anybody, be it a millennial or a woman, and you've given them a machine gun, you kind of want them to use it because your life's at stake there. But I think Ken's also using an analogy too, which is there's a different approach.
Oh, good point. Yeah. What do you remember, like in politics even? I remember Maggie Thatcher being so amazingly intelligent, how she could, put off any, she was just so clever. And I remember her and Ronald Reagan resonated well. And I remember the one statement she said that you can't disinvent nuclear weapons, so quit acting like you can make them go away. You can't. And she told that to, all the political leaders in NATO. But I thought, again, I think if a woman gets a chance and she's, given the same opportunities and same education, same training, whatever, a woman can certainly perform at the same level as men. No question about it.
Well, Ken Sinclair, getting back to you in the article, and if this didn't become apparent in this month's addition, it might be a question we might ask, and maybe we set up some sort of a place these comments can be collected, which is from the women in our industry, what are you not getting now that you need to be successful? And I think that would be really useful as an employer that employs women. I mean, we always, not just for the women, by the way, but for anybody. I mean, one of the key questions we ask is, what do you need to be successful, and how can we support you with that? And, I just wonder, Ken Sinclair, are you picking up any through the articles, or is there anything you're picking up that we as an industry can do better to help empower our women even more?
They're basically on the social media posts, which we did several of, but also the companies did several posting that they had this, had the women speaking on automated buildings. And every one of those posts were extremely well viewed, and some of the discussions that broke out were great as well. So I think that is the evolution of what's going on now. Is social media tends to be a good place to discuss this. You just need to start some of those questions. Nicholas, our contributing editor, is almost a master at that. He tends to get some interesting arguments or discussions, arguments isn't the right word, discussions going on LinkedIn. And it's incredible the amount of people, like you'll get up to 50, 60, 75 people locally or globally responding. And that leads into, we're now mid-month, so my head is in the April issue. And
no, hang on a second, real Ken, because I think you started to answer my question, and then we started to shift gears. Did Nicholas pick up anything? Did you notice anything on social media that maybe issues that we're not addressing that need to be addressed based on sort of what you were talking about?
I hadn't seen that question asked.
I got you. Well, can we get Nicholas to put that out there, maybe? Because that would.
Well, yeah, no, it's. I think it's probably better put out by somebody like Gina, or one. You got to. I don't think you want to be the women's handlers. You want the women to.
Well, no. I'm not in any way, shape, or form doing that. But here's another question, and let's just get down to the weeds a little bit. Men and women compete with each other differently, and I'm not saying men competing with women and women competing with men. I'm saying men compete with men differently than women compete with other women. Agree or disagree? So I think that's something else you have to understand too, because just human nature. I mean, if you're in a company and there's a prize that's going to get shared with some people, if there's competition. So that's a whole nother aspect of it, right? Because if we're going to work, and this is not true with just women, it's true with millennials or whatever. I mean, we really have to understand sort of what motivates them. We're trying to understand what they need to be more successful. So, I don't look at it as handling at all. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can back away from women and be afraid to have discussions with them and go, I'm not going to handle you. I think we have to sort of dive in and say, hey, I'm curious, I'm open, I really want to know, and let's get real, right? I mean, because there's all this politically correct stuff that they're supposed to say and we're supposed to say regarding the workplace, and for the most part, I think we have really open dialogues. At least in my company, we do. I'm wondering, as an industry, and maybe this is more a question for our audience, is are we having those dialogues? And I think it gets back to, look, I can is a male, and you guys can too. I mean, if we start complaining about what we need too much, right? And then at a certain time it comes, well, we got to let somebody go. Well, that damn Eric, he complains a lot, right? Let's get rid of him. So, there's not, are there safe places for them to really just be real and express what it is they need? And that's where I think maybe as a service, if we collectively, automated controls and control trends, could create some sort of a survey or a place for them to maybe express what they maybe can't say, not just for women, but for men.
Eric, to your point though, at the breakout that I was talking about, the HR show that Ken Sinclair hosted, they did have that because there's an inherent bias, and people don't even realize that they have a tendency to discriminate just simply because it's so into their DNA that they can't even identify it within themselves. But there is a bias, and they were talking about the women at the presentation. One of them said that there's a new way to do resume selections, and you take the female or male out of it. You don't tell them the identity of the person. The applicant's resume is basically non-specific, and you're just evaluating the resume on the merits of the actual, whatever you're looking for.
But I think it's a really good point, and I might be opening a can of worms, but are you discriminating against a woman or a millennial for that matter, or anybody, if you treat them differently than you would treat anybody else, right? In other words, I think you got to treat everybody with respect and fairness. Equal pay, equal work, equal opportunity. But are you actually discriminating and holding women back inadvertently by, well, I can't talk to this way because they feel like they're being handled or whatever? Is that causing more harm than good? Because my take is they just want to be treated equally. They want to be treated with respect and equally. But if I'm thinking in my head, well, I can't say this to, we'll use my friend Gina. I can't say this because she's a woman and she might take it the wrong way. Am I just creating another problem within the problem, thinking I'm solving it?
Okay, actually, let me just do a little bit of summary here then. What Ken's talking about was our session at Orlando, and it was called Pulling More Women into the Ranks of Smart Building Leadership. And it featured Gina Elliott, Monica Mohan, Therese, Casey Talon, and Aaron DeFries from Linkspin. So the five of them, basically, I think that's what you were referring to and what we're quoting from. So that's interesting. That's on our site and our education thing if you want to basically do that. I don't think you guys recorded that, did you? No, I don't.
That was when we're we had a technical failure.
Yeah.
With one of the cameras.
So that's there's good content there, and there was a lot of positive. There's actually some reference to that, I believe, in some of the interviews. The other thing that I would recommend, that this question that you're asking me, or asking, should automated buildings or should control trends put out some requests to how can the industry better serve women? I would like you to defer that question, and as part of your either in your opening or you're following up with Gina when you have that interview, ask her that question. And I think that's what it has to become from a strong woman in the industry, to basically come up with a valid how can we help you? Because I think we are the problem.
Yeah, well, Ken Sikora, I've got to applaud you here, because here I'm sitting here thinking about the ludicrousy of it. Here we are talking about women's issues, and we really should be having women on the show to discuss this issue. So ladies, we're sorry we kind of missed it again. We're doing the man thing where we just didn't think this thing all the way through. But
thank you.
But that's a very valid point. And then we'll pursue it. But it's a really interesting time, and it's an important issue. And I think personally, we've done really well as an industry, and we've got more to go. But I think the more to go might come from understanding better and asking the next layer of questions and getting the next layer of understanding. But the gist of it is, for me is I think that the women that I know in this industry, and Ken, I'll ask you, is like, hey, treat me with respect, give me the same opportunities, the same pay, but don't treat me any different than you treat anybody else. Would that be how you guys would read it?
And I think the other big thing we've got is we've got critical mass right now. We have enough strong women in the industry to lead us. Let them lead. Just basically, ask those questions: as how can we get more women in the industry? What are the barriers? And we'll try and maybe do another session like this in Las Vegas if that all comes to pass.
Well, I would be more. I recently had a small SBA, Small Business Association, Emerging Leaders class course. It was 6 months long, and the class was half women, and they were specializing on learning how to do minority businesses and women-owned businesses, and because I think you have to promote. I think you need to put power and programming into that. You have to engineer the development of women in many industries, and I would say ours too, that you have to have inclusion. So you need to, if you got 10 positions, I would make sure like Eric's point of the different points of view, the diversity is actually you get some really neat synergies out of that. But if you don't forcibly address things, they get casually overlooked. So I think you have to, if you want to put more women into the career field, you have to make women. It has to be appealed, and there has to be an invitation, and there has to be a minimal number to meet the suggested or the desired growth and progress.
Well,
just like a government program, with like affirmative actions or whatever, you have to have, and one of the women brought that out in that session, Ken, that if you really believe in it, then do it. She said, get a woman, hire a woman right now.
Well,
as your next priority.
Right. No, we've done that. And listen, I think, based on, if you think about it just from a practical standpoint, both you guys alluded to this, by 2024, man, 60% of the workforce are going to be gone. Right. So we need all the help we can get. And, the other, we're talking about women, which we should continue to talk about women, but have we really talked about minorities and how we can bring more minorities in? Have we really sort of discussed, what they need to be successful in our industry?
No,
yeah.
But this is March. March is the Women's Month. So we'll just stay kind of
minority women too.
Of course, but many. I think it's a you said the deep grass or deep weeds. There's so much that this can go, so many directions. But I think the capture that was done by Ken St. Clair and the Automated Buildings March edition just really truly had met its desired effect, and that was to highlight so many women that are definitely making impacts, whether they're customer service, whether they're technical support, whether they're sales, whether they're marketing, and we have made a great deal of progress. I'll say that. I've been in the business about 40 years now, and I've seen it. Think about the old meetings. Think about going to the training, and there was no who was in there. Look straight ahead in the classroom in every seat. Who was there? How many women were there? How many minorities were there? But now it's changed. The complexion of these training classes are definitely including both women and minorities. But so I think there's good growth. There's been progress, but again, I think somebody like Gina Elliott will tell you there's a lot more room.
Right.
And to your point, Ken, we'll ask her. I wrote a note down here. I wonder if I remember next week. Ask her, Gina, before we get started here. We have to pull a question out from last week.
We'll ask her, and then Ken, we're going to get to. First of all, applaud you, Ken St. Clair, again. As always, right on topic, right on point with automatedbuildings.com, the March issue. So well done there. So three final questions. First is anything else you want to discuss regarding the March issue? If not, we'd love to hear about the April issue. And the final question is, when do you have the old guys issue, honoring old guys? The dinosaur issue.
the newly dead, yeah. Yeah, so I was really pleased with the issue. Again, I'm looking forward to your next interview with Gina, because Gina is going to tell you about a company that is a woman-led company and is women DNA all the way through it. And I think that's a new trend that's coming. I think women have to, that glass ceiling I think it's just a perceived thing. Nobody said you couldn't own the company or you couldn't run the company. And we're starting to see that. That will be the major change when the women DNA companies start to compete with men companies, then we'll start to see a different approach. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing. It's not that there's not a lot of men working in switch automation, but the DNA comes from a lot of the thinking from the Springboard, which is an interesting organization in Australia. Apparently, Springboard is a global the women's, I'm not sure the exact title of it, but it pulls together all the women entrepreneurs and lets them discuss how they can move and create their companies. So that's kind of an interesting perception too, is it's not just about getting the top job in the company, it's owning the company that you're owning and operating the company that you're involved in. Just don't stop thinking. There's no limits. Okay, so that'll wrap up our March issue. so like I said, my head is in the April issue right now, and I'm theming that adaption, and certainly part of that adaption is the women in our industry. But it just starts out with what has 50 years in the industry taught me? That adaption is our survival superpower. It's really the only thing that keeps us moving as we go through all these changes. And we basically, well, I quote Tony Bennett, who says, "The more I learn, the less I know." And that is absolutely exactly where I am in life now, as I keep learning all this stuff, these new technologies, new ways of doing it, new social media approaches. And with every one of those comes just a understanding how little I understand. And so it's not just about learning what it is we have to do to move ahead. And of course, Darwin, he said that the best is, he said, it's not the most intelligent that survives, not the strongest, but it's the species that's most able to change just to its changing environment in all which it finds. And that's exactly, I believe, what our industry needs to do now. Is we need to heavily embrace in adaptation. We need to adapt. We've got radical changes coming out of the COVID, bringing that back. The whole idea, actually, another comment I was going to make about women was during COVID, they basically ended up operating from home as we all did. Of course, they often had their children still there who were home with them because they couldn't go to school, and some of them were like one-armed paper hangers trying to balance their social life, trying to keep their corporate stuff going. So it was an interesting times, and I think it really showed their strength and again their adaptation to a very unusual situation. And I think that's something we can all relate to. And I think if we think back in our own personal careers, and I certainly have that as well, as I came into this industry, and it was, as soon as I got into it, I mean, it started with pneumatics and fluidics and pneumatic transmission and hardwired logic machines and computerized controls, and then direct digital control, and then web control, and all of these evolutionary steps that were huge. And I just had to keep trying to understand them best I could. But what was the skill that kept me alive? The skill that kept me alive was my ability to adapt to those. And I think we all have to start thinking more about the adaptation process and less about the level evolution. And this learning part is basically, you just learn to a point that you immobilize yourself. Then you have to say, how do I adapt to what it is I've learned?
That sounds like a neat thesis. Great.
Yeah. That was a Freudian slip. You asked for a comment, and I wrote a thesis.
So you got Ken, Darwin, Freud, Sinclair,
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. The March issue is out, automatedbuildings.com. Ken, as always, thank you so much. We'll look forward to the April issue and getting you back on April to talk about the big A, adaptation. So stay tuned to that episode. Have a great day, Ken, and thanks again, brother.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
See you, Ken.
All right. Well, Ken, there you go, man. Another great episode with Ken Sinclair, automatedbuilding.com. The March issue's out. And Kenny, a couple things going on, man. First of all, we got a great show. We alluded to it with Gina Elliott, Switch Automation, coming up next week. And Kenny, let's just give our audience a little sneak preview. We got a couple of vendors that are already close to signing up for this, but we are going to be offering a special marketing program for 10 lucky vendors. We're going to do 10 of these in 2021. And the gist of it's going to be why advertise when you can co-create. It's going to be the ability to sort of be part of the Control Trends community. You'll be able to take over and you will have your own site. You'll be able to post your own post on Control Trends. You'll be able to take over the Control Trends talk show once or twice a year and a bunch of other benefits. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. And
it's exciting as can be. Like you said, we went over the 3 million viewers. So that was a big thing that happened this week. So imagine at 3 million views. It was very exciting to see that, because we got over 7,600 email, signees, subscribers, 14,500 YouTube subscribers. So we're very fortunate that we're able to go out there and hit that sweet spot in our industry. These are all vetted people that have something to do with the HVAC building automation industry. But then, as you said, you can use the tools to create blogs, post product releases, post videos, conduct interviews, and post press releases. So great idea.
Yeah, it's going to really give, and again, part of our selection process, you got to have really valuable content because we really value our listeners and our viewers. But if you have valuable content, it'll be an auxiliary channel that you can get out and market directly to the Control Trends community, as long as you got something useful to say and you're helping. So we are interviewing vendors for that now. We got a couple that are getting ready to come on, and but we'll limit the number of vendors that can do that. But you'll essentially have your own login to Control Trends. You'll be able to log into your post. Kenny and I'll check it and make sure that it fits the guidelines of Control Trends, and it's a whole new era. And just remember, why advertise when you can co-create? That's what we're going to be about. And with that, big dog, I think we should let our audience go back to their Sunday spring day time and have some fun. What do you think?
Great idea. Yeah, well, the weather's still chilly here in Pittsburgh. It was 27 degrees when I woke up. Now it's up to 48. So.
Oh my gosh, it was so chilly here when I woke up. It was 67 degrees in Atlanta when I woke up, and now it's up to 80. I might have to get a jacket. I don't know. But with that, a special thanks to our co-host. With that, a special thanks to our guest this week, Ken Sinclair, AutomatedBuildings.com. Check him out. A special shout out to all the wonderful, wonderful women in our industry. Keep doing what you're doing. We need you. You're making us all better. And a special thanks to your co-host of mine, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Julius Caesar, Ken Smyers. Remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, enjoy this spring weather.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. And that's a wrap.